Good evening, race fans, and welcome to another live broadcast of the Dynasty Racing League right here on DRL TV. My name is Getty Buckner. Joining me tonight, as always, is the voice of the Molnar Automotive Cup Series, Mr. Martin Wenzel. Martin, how are you tonight, sir?
Doing all right. Looking forward to this Daytona 200.
Right.
Play racing.
Tonight, it will be our pleasure to bring to you the Molnar Automotive Cup Series Daytona 200. In our 18th race of the season, we are set to see who can be the fastest driver to complete 80 laps here at Daytona. Now, unlike 2 weeks ago, when we had a margin of victory of almost 3 seconds, tonight almost guarantees a margin of victory that can be measured with a yardstick. Daytona International Speedway is located in Daytona Beach, Florida, and it has been stock car racing's most popular track for almost 60 years. Now, when you add the combination of these stock cars with the 31 degrees of alleged banking in the corners, the results can be breathtaking and also treacherous. One thing that this track promotes is normally surprise winner almost every time, as what you see in real life. So, winners like Eric Jones, Michael Waltrip. It's almost routine to have a last lap pass for the lead also. Now, as we welcome Martin Wenzel into the broadcast, Martin, I mean, what is the likelihood we will have a first-time winner tonight here in the Dynasty Racing League?
Well, just going off of practice times right now, Jeffrey Meyer's #1 in practice, and that's a guy, he's coming up from the Truck Series, and he hasn't gotten a win yet this season, so he could sneak out a win. Of course, you do have a guy, in the second place position currently in practice, Justin Levine, who at some point this season is going to get a win in a proper race, not just the Daytona or Talladega. So that's where you're going to see some of these guys. I mean, I'm looking just at the top 5 right now in practice alone. 4 of them are truck guys: Meyer, Cable, O'Leary, and Jackson, and then William Edwards is Grand National. So you have Justin Levine and Mark Johnson, those teammates. Those are your first Cup guys right there. So, yeah, there's a lot of names out here, and any one of them could be the winner, as we see in real life. It's an attrition. It's a battle of attrition. Now, going back to Daytona at the beginning of the season, I think it went green the whole way this year. I know last year, the summer Daytona race in the first season of Dynasty Racing League on iRacing, it went green the whole way, so we'll see how it goes. But if there's a wreck and it could take out quite a few of our regular contenders, then the guy that you won't expect to win could get a win. And we saw that at Daytona at the beginning of the season too. David Wright, snuck through and survived the final wreck between the leaders and snuck through and got the win, sort of like in Eric Jones fashion.
Yeah, I mean, you saw, that was David Wright's only win this year, and that guaranteed him a spot in the playoffs. So as much as we go to a super speedway only 4 times a season, it's still, those 4 races are very important, especially for a lot of those bubble drivers. As we'll bring up the point standings here, you'll see David Wright currently in the 6th position based on points and that win that he had. Otherwise, David Wright could be, anywhere, 10th and below. So it made that one win, that one last lap pass that he had, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's what it can come down to. It can come down to those 2 leaders, and I believe it was, I'm trying to remember who was battling there. I know Anthony Burroughs was up there battling, and the other, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Blake Griffith, and they were battling for the lead, for the win. And just before the start-finish line, wiped out, and David Wright just snuck through as those guys were spinning through the grass, and they eventually both crossed, but finished probably 3rd and 4th because a couple guys were able to sneak past with their cars going straight.
Yeah, and I'm actually was part of that race, and I do remember I finished 8th or something like that. I ended up getting kind of caught in that final lap deal as well, but I believe it was like Anthony Burroughs led the most laps. And again, that's important too, because that's points. But when you're looking at this point in the season, again, I'll bring up these point standings real quick again. We're looking for people like John Theodore to sneak in based on points. Same with David Wellborn. But otherwise, the field seems set. It seems like we have just about the group of drivers that we're going to have. It's just seeding now. It's up to where do you start when we go to that first race. Because our last race heading into the chase or the playoffs will be the Brickyard, and then after that we have that first race of our playoff format. So now it's kind of like seeding. Anthony Burrows with the 6 wins is going to start with a huge advantage. But you've got people like Mike Springer, who is going to be a contender. He just needs that little extra push to start in the playoffs. He definitely want that win. Or you're going to see John Theodore, who I think can get in on points, especially as Brandon Dalton continues to miss races. John Theodore can take his spot easily. But you see a David Wellborn or a Sam Niederhelm that they might need a little bit of help getting in. And one way to do that is to come here at Daytona and sneak out a victory.
Well, yeah, the standings are a little in flux too, even with some of those guys that are, quote unquote locked in, because again, you have to have that 80% participation for that locked in status to hold. So a guy like Eric Wolf, I think, Eric Wolf, Thomas Harmon, those are a couple guys, and Mark Johnson especially, and David Wright. There's a number of those guys with only one win there who are on the bubble of qualifying for that 80% position and that locked in with that win, just being a rule that it's like you actually have to show up for some races.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Eric Wolf might not make that 80%, but points-wise, he's also okay. But some of the other guys, the guy that's on the edge is Thomas Harmon, though I think Thomas Harmon will be okay. He shows up pretty consistently recently.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark Johnson's one that he might be on the outside looking in, even with a win, because that 80% participation requirement for the win and in. And then if you look at his points, he's about 400 points behind Jordan Gonzalez, or not 400 points, but 400 points behind the leader. I think about like 200 points behind Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
So if he doesn't have that win and in because of the 80%, he's not in on points.
Right.
And so that's
right.
So there's a little. So we'll see as we get closer. The standings will kind of shake out and be like, okay, this guy's actually not in. And so I think that 17, 18, 19, 20, all 4 of those guys still have a really good shot at getting in, depending on how it shakes out for some of that participation of those winners.
Looking at the standings, we've got people that are very fast and just they've had rough luck. Like Jordan Gonzalez, he's a true competitor. He's very, very fast. He's just never seems to be in the right place at the right time. So a win here could help. I mean, assuming he doesn't get a win the rest of the season, which you can never say. He's more than capable of doing so. But you see that this Daytona race could be a kind of a momentum booster. Like, hey, I finally got that win. I can kind of race a little bit more relaxed now, because Jordan, again, if he gets in the playoff field here, he will definitely be competing for the championship. He's not going to just be there and be happy with making it. So, you look at some of the guys that maybe had some rough luck. Mike Springer is another guy that I mentioned earlier, and even Eric Johnson, who they're really, really fast. They're really consistent, but it just seems like sometimes they just don't have the best luck. So a win here at Daytona can really springboard you to having a successful rest of the season. On the contrary to that, as we spoke right before the broadcast, Martin, I was bringing up names that maybe didn't want to see a super speedway. A name like Wade Hustad or Jonathan Schwartz, where Wade Hustad is riding a huge wave of momentum after dominating performances in all of our series that we have here in the Dynasty Racing League. All of a sudden, you come to Daytona where Wade Hustad is used to having a 3 or 4 or 5 second lead. All of a sudden here at Daytona, you can't get away from anybody. So, he could get tied up in a wreck, which could be, frustrating. It could be frustrating to him and affect maybe his performance at Kentucky next week.
Yeah, I think he'll do well. I mean, he bounced back after the opening race this season at Daytona. He was up there with the leaders, and he got caught up in that mess with Burrows and Blake Griffith and all that up there. And again, David Wright snuck through, and he was one of those cars involved. I'm not sure about like breaking the momentum or anything. I think this is just kind of a different track where you're just trying to survive, and if you sneak out a win, and for a guy like Wade Hustad, this is a race that isn't do or die. I mean, this is a race that Jordan Gonzalez could win.
Mm-hmm.
And that locks him in the playoffs now. Now he's in the playoffs. He instantly jumps to 9th in the standings. He's locked in the playoffs. He's got 3 points. Or a guy like Joshua Wakefield, who is just a guy that shows up every week and accrues points. He can get a win and lock himself in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fluke of it. There's no rhyme or reason sometimes to the winners. I mean, we look in real life, who's won the Daytona 500 and gone on to do nothing else.
There's several names.
Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne.
Yep.
Who lost his ride to Matt Kenseth basically, a couple of races there, and now came back for Daytona. It's like you got a Daytona 500 win and that's it. Or even, and just watching the Daytona race from this week in real life, it's like you see guys who are up there and they run in the front. Ricky Stenhouse, Michael McDowell. The cool stat that they threw out there was like Paul Menard and AJ Allmendinger had until this race had a streak of finishing top 10 at the Daytona, the summer Daytona race. 3 straight years they had finished top 10. No one else had done that except for AJ Allmendinger and Paul Menard. So this is a race where anyone can get up there. Now, in our first race this season, the people running up front were the typical, were the usual suspects. So we'll see how that goes. But last night, who was running up there? It was you and you.
It was myself, James Pandolf.
You and James Pandolf. Pandolf wins the race. As well, you had the 26th, Daniel Holloway, who unfortunately had a mechanical issue with the internet cutting out. I like to call that a mechanical issue. A tire went down, engine failed before that last restart. But you had guys up there that were competing for a win who are not the usual guys. James Pandolf came away with it. He is a points guy in the Grand National Series, so that's cool. But this is anyone's game. This is anyone's race, and I think we're going to the grid here, right?
Yep, we are, and it looks like Wade Hustad, who we were talking about, actually ends up getting the pole, so we will interview Wade Hustad in just a moment as we are set to bring this live coverage here of the Daytona 200 as we're looking at the grid cycle across the bottom there. One thing that we'll cover, of course, is different strategies. People are going to drop to the back. People are going to rush to the front. It's going to be very exciting as we are just about set to get this underway, Martin.
Are you able to get on the grid and see the cars?
Yep.
Okay, well I'm having trouble here because I'm not. Go there.
I'm going to bring in Wade Hustad. Hurry up and get him in here and talking to him real quick. Hey Wade, you got a copy, sir?
I do, Getty. How are you?
Hey, good. We were just talking about you, about how maybe, as far as drivers are concerned, you might be one of the guys that maybe didn't want to see a super speedway come up on the schedule, given your momentum at some of the mile and a halves and some of the other places that we've been to. You've had a great last few weeks. What's your game plan tonight? This could be an opportunity to catch Burrows. It can also be an opportunity to lose, some points if you get taken out. So, what's your mindset tonight?
Well, it's definitely a crapshoot. However, we are looking forward to tonight. This is actually a pretty fun race. But overall, I think what we want to do is, if we can get a win, great. But I think it'd be pretty fun to push some teammates to a win here tonight. I'm hoping to get behind either Chad or Eric Johnson tonight. And, I want to turn Eric Johnson's luck around and hopefully get him back on the right page with that bad luck. So if we can come out in the top half of the field, we're going to be happy tonight.
Awesome, Wade. Well, again, good luck to you, sir. Keep it clean, and hopefully we talk to you at the end.
Sounds good.
That was Wade Hustad as we are just about set to go green here, Martin. Very, very, very exciting race, restrictor plate racing at its finest, and 38 drivers showed up for this race, so this is going to be huge.
Yeah, which line is going to be the better line to start this race, the outside or the inside?
I'm hoping the inside line is, because people can really take it easy. As you can tell here, it takes these cars about half a lap to a full lap to get up to speed here, but hopefully they can kind of get themselves sorted out. These cars definitely promote the longer green flag runs, as the closing rate on these stock cars are much slower than the B car and the C truck. So I think these guys can get it together. Of course, there's always the risk of the big one, Martin, but I think lap 1 of 80 so far is looking pretty good.
Is that reflective of real life? I didn't watch the Xfinity race for Daytona. I noticed just watching the Coke 400. It's like that they seem to close really quick and get on top of each other.
Yeah, again, I'm not totally certain.
Nice, good bumps.
The difference between the three is we're watching these leaders up front here try to get sorted out, and of course we'll move through the field the best we can here in a couple laps. Eric Johnson does lead that lap though, so that's points for him as Wade Hustad, and I believe that's Mark Johnson behind him. Those are your top 3 cars right now, as the outside line has fizzled out completely, as these drivers are maybe looking to get single file, kind of get stretched out and knock some of these laps out.
Well, I'm also noticing, of course, we are on iRacing. This isn't real life, so there's quite a bit of internet issues right now, server issues, and people bounce around, flopping around. I came in, and Chris James, the whole front end of his car was missing, but looks like he's fine. It's just everyone's I think it's gonna work itself out. The start of the race there was a little shaky.
Yeah, you can see. Yeah, again, that's a problem with the medium that we're using. This is obviously all internet-related, computer-related racing. As real as it may look, it's again, we are at the mercy of the internet. So, as we saw last night, that actually caused some issues and took out some really, really competitive cars.
Well, it in fact took out Chris James and Thomas Harmon. They were probably 4 or 5 feet apart, and suddenly it acted like they actually had hit each other. So, hopefully we don't see anything like that. It's all single file basically right now. Man, the track is really dark in some areas. Like lights
right. iRacing forgot to pay their utility bill this week.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Wow. Now look in here. Besides the 58 just poking out now. I mean, obviously, almost the top 20 cars here are all single file. Again, only lap 4 of 80, and we've seen time and time again that it really lap 78 or 79 is really the only one that matters. Again, all these drivers impressively single file all the way back. That lead pack. Very impressive start here as Jonathan Schwartz does, take a little bit of a peek. Ooh, gets a little bit of a smooch there from David Wellborn as he tried to peek out as well. Now, overheating here might be an issue. I don't think it'll be that big of an issue tonight, Martin. I've raced the A cars a few races this week, and overheating wasn't too bad, especially if you're not aggressively pushing the car in front of you. As we look here at our leader, Eric Johnson. And then we're actually 3 wide back here. David Wellborn, and I believe that's the 91 of Richard Springer. They are 3 wide here. Really, the only battle on the track is basically all the other 38 cars have gone single file. So again, these A cars do promote that green flag racing.
Well, I'm looking at a guy up in top in 4th place right now. You got Johnson, Hustad, and Mark Johnson. Eric Johnson.
Oh, we got a spin.
Whoa.
Sam Niederhelm. That will bring out our caution as I'm trying desperately to cycle through all these names we have here on this roster.
Yeah, John Peterson just got into his left or into his right quarter panel.
Sorry, folks, for the delay here with